Hey guys, what's up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over the market and let's go over Tesla and see what we can figure out moving forward for the rest of the week and the rest of the month, more or less. As usual, if you enjoyed, don't forget to hit that like button. It does help a lot. I am not a financial advisor and this is not financial advice. And again, my membership section for $2.99 is live. The link is down below where I share my intraday thoughts on Tesla as it moves. So you can see the post that I did, for instance, today. Talking about the blue line, which it bounced exactly off of, which we'll go over very quickly. So moving into a Tesla closing down 0.35%, putting us at just shy of $256, pretty much almost on the dot. Now that's compared to the market, of course, a pretty poor performance for Tesla, right? Definitely showing some pretty, decent weakness in my opinion here. And, I'm not gonna lie, guys, it's not looking too hot right now, right? We'll go over everything I'm seeing right now. I do think it's looking pretty weak overall, and I'll explain why. But again, with the markets ripping as they are, Tesla red, pretty bad stuff, right? Not ideal, let's just say that. But let's get into it. What does it all mean and why does it not look too hot? So first and foremost, you can see, actually let's go back to the 1 hour and this is exactly what I said in my membership section, is that Tesla pretty much opened up, or down rather, 3% for pre-market, and then it opened up, pretty much bounced exactly off the TL line that I discussed so many times already. Didn't move it whatsoever. It's been like this the whole time, but bounced off pretty much perfectly off of it. Beautiful run up. I did day trade that. I pretty much bought pretty much as the market opened. And then sold in the 350s, like 2 or something like that. But, overall, nice little trade. And then I scalped it a little bit more. But the most important thing to note is the fact that we did actually go above yesterday's gap, but we couldn't really maintain above the gap that we left from this morning's open or yesterday's close. And we ended up actually closing below it, which isn't ideal, right? The fact that we went above and got rejected is a little bit of a bearish sign when you can't where you fill the gap, but then you get rejected by the gap, bearish sign. Again, assuming you're coming from bottom to up and vice versa, bullish if you're coming from top to bottom, you gap fill and then you bounce off of it and go back up even higher or whatever, right? A little bit of a bearish sign there. That's not ideal. This also puts a little bit more pressure on this potential top signal candle from yesterday playing out, right? Again, not the worst candle today in the world, right? Definitely could have been a lot uglier in my opinion, but the fact that it's still, is closing below yesterday's gap to me is, a little bit worrisome so far. But again, it could have been a lot worse in my opinion. So it's not too bad, but definitely not great either, right? Now, the most important thing, as usual, ladies and gentlemen, is to, pay attention to this teal line, right? As long as we're above this teal line, technically still bullish, but I do think the steam is definitely running out. And there's a few reasons as to why I believe that. So again, the first one is, of course, the gap fill, closing below it, not ideal. And of course, especially on a day where the market is pretty damn green, right? Definitely not ideal. And there's something interesting with QQQ, which we'll go over very soon. So that's number one, right? That's strike number one. Strike number two is the fact that there's bearish divergences setting up now, right? Pretty obvious ones too, in my opinion. You can see, I talked about this the other day, how, the RSI in the 1 hour pretty much going sideways, even though Tesla's skyrocketing up, not really doing a whole lot, and how it's getting tighter and tighter and tighter, and how a big move is coming. Well, I don't think the big move is here just yet, but I do think it's like, it's exceptionally close. Like, I think maybe tomorrow, probably next week, like Monday or Tuesday. But the point is the fact that you can see the RSI in the 1 hour now definitely showing its direction, right? Kind of, chilling, kind of going sideways, slowly going up, I guess, right? But now you can see it pretty much went well below, essentially made lower lows, while Tesla's still chilling all the way up here. So that's a bearish divergence right there. You can also see the same thing on the 4 hour, right? Even though Tesla is still, again, going all the way up, right? The highest point that we had on the RSI in the 4 hour was all the way up here. And this is when Tesla was closing right on this candle right here, which is around 247. Now we're closing at prices at 255, 256 even. And we're not only pointing straight down, but we're obviously well below that level as well on the RSI, right? It's making lower lows below the median line as well. And overall, not looking too healthy, right? Not looking too good. Definitely showing signs of weakness and showing signs that the momentum has finally, maybe not fully stopped, but it's definitely slowing down, right? Again, though, like I said before, and like I said many times, as long as we're above the teal line, technically still bullish and technically still possible to go to 265, but I wouldn't bet on it. Personally, I would not bet on it. It can happen. I'm not willing to take that risk because to me, the way I see it, maybe you'll go to 65 and maybe you'll win on a, maybe close to 4%, but you're pretty much risking what could be easily at least an 8% drop, if not all the way to my target, which is going to be almost a 15% drop, which for Tesla is not a lot. That thing, it can do that in like a week easily, maybe even a few days, right? It's not that much. I don't think that'll happen overnight, but I do think that is going to be the overall next move coming. And I'll explain why that is very, very soon as well. But those are the main things that I'm personally very not too happy with, right? Not very happy with right now for Tesla in terms of, more bullish, in a bullish aspect or for a further run or whatever the case may be. Now, again, people are probably also wondering, where did I get the 220 price target from? Well, the first and foremost, right, we have the Fibonacci retracement, which again, go from the swing low to now what I think is, could be the swing top. We have the 0.382 level sitting at pretty much 220 on the dots, right? So that's the main level I'll be paying attention to. And you can see it also lines up with this teal line that's going to kind of the bottom right, which was that overall resistance that we had, the overall trend line, right? Several touches over here, you can see, and then we finally broke out of it. And again, coming down to retest it, which is also around that 220-ish, give or take, not exactly on the dot, of course, could be a little bit lower, could be a little bit higher, but, roughly around 220 also is, a great level to retest as well, right? Usually when you break out, you always want to retest them. Test it on the breakout before further upside. Very, very common. So that's also another reason why I am very closely paying attention to that level. Something like this is what I think will happen. That's my current forecast for Tesla. Something like that, give or take. But whatever, we'll get into that, as it, of course, happens, right? But that's kind of the main thing I'll be looking at for Tesla. All the other indicators is pretty useless because we're still well above pretty much all of them, I think, right? At least I'm pretty sure we are. I can't imagine us being lower than any of them with this kind of skyrocket of a move, right? But with that being said, the Bollinger Band is the one that is still interesting to always pay attention to, in my opinion, where you can see we are starting to descend from that green line. Again, losing a little bit of that momentum. And the white line you can see, which is what I always say, we always revert to. No matter what happens, we always revert to the white line, right? It is starting to play, not starting to, it has been playing catch up. But even as we kind of take our time to go back to, let's say, that rough 220-ish level, it is going to still continue playing catch up. And I think it'll kind of meet us somewhere around the 220s, maybe slightly higher even, as we kind of meet it and then kind of consolidate for a while before, building up the momentum for the next move higher, which I think will be most likely what will happen, right? So that's kind of the main thing I'll be looking at and paying attention to very closely for Tesla, TSLA. Moving over to QQQ very quickly. I'm hoping some of you remember, I think maybe Monday, maybe it was Tuesday, I think it was Monday, I talked about how I personally see that QQQ can easily reach $370, right? And that's exactly where we're at right now, right? And this is not a level I just pulled out of my behind, right? The reason I set this level is because you can see previously we've had major resistances at this exact same level over here, followed by some decent downturns whenever we did get rejected. But we can see it also acted as a resistance even on these uptrends right here. And again, every time we got rejected, followed by some, some downturns even on this, massive run up here. So just keep that in mind. It's a pretty major level. But on top of that, it is also potentially setting up that cup and handle pattern that I talked about as well, right? Where this is essentially the cup, this fits perfectly with it, right? And then of course we potentially set up that little bit of a handle right here, which I think will take us down to somewhere around maybe even 330. And I think from there, we'll see how it goes, right? And 330 again is the level that I got from, again, Fibonacci from potential swing low to the potential swing high, right? Which you can see the 0.382 pretty much sits at almost exactly $330 per share or whatever, right? For QQQ. So another level that's important to pay attention to, right? QQQ is also extremely overbought, which is pretty rare for an indice like this to be this high on the RSI, pretty much at 80, which is pretty high. But we'll see, of course. We'll see. It's not guaranteed. It's not final. Just, something to consider, of course. But, if QQQ does retrace down to form that handle, let's say to close to 330, that will, of course, bring Tesla down as well with it, which I think will bring Tesla down to somewhere around those 220s, maybe even 215. I think the worst case realistically is about $200 per share. But that's kind of what I am seeing right now. Ladies and gentlemen, again, my membership section live is down below. I pretty much share all these thoughts intraday as it happens. For instance, this morning I talked about, how it bounced off. And the final thing I do want to quickly share, by a great account, I recommend you follow him on Twitter if you haven't already, Mayhem for Market. He shares a lot of like overall macro stuff. He's not very much like a technical analyst. He doesn't share much of that, but he shares overall macro trends, such as this one, which is a very good one, right? So you can see the black and the red line, right? The red line is, of course, the treasury bonds, and the black line is essentially QQQ, right? And you can see a massive divergence from each other right now, right? He calls them the jaws, right? How you can see QQQ is way up here while the TLT or the treasury bonds is all the way down here. And the reason I bring this up is because more often than not, they follow together pretty damn close. And usually when they split apart, for instance, if you were to block all this part off over here and you just looked at this part, the jaws were also pretty tight. And then what happened? They finally caught up. They always get very close, if not actually overlap once again. And in this case, we're substantially apart from each other, which is why I wouldn't be surprised if QQQ would actually retrace down to around 330s, right? Because this would be a nice little retest as well. Worst case, I think 320s, but it will be a nice little retest, but I think this will also close that gap as well, which it almost always doesn't have to fully close and fully intersect, but again, it usually at least gets pretty damn close to it. So definitely a chart worth paying attention to. And I remember him posting this many times when these instances happen, maybe not to this extreme, but there was many times where they did diverge like this. And I saw him post this chart, you know, over the last like maybe year and a half or something like that, maybe a year, whatever the case may be. He would always post it when they would diverge this much, and pretty much every single time they have gotten at least somewhat close back to each other. Just take that for what it's worth. Just my opinion, just his opinion. Who knows? Maybe he will, maybe he won't. No one knows for sure. Obviously, this will be, you know, this isn't a game that's supposed to be easy, but more often than not, whenever this happens, they usually come back together at some points, not too long in the future. So anyways, that's kind of what I am seeing right now. Ladies and gentlemen, let me know what you think down below. But thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.